You weren't supposed to remember it, but you did. And not with fear, with longing. That's the trap. The most dangerous dreams are not the terrifying ones. They're the ones you secretly hope to return to. It wasn't just a dream. It was a door, opened softly, entered quietly, closed without a sound, but something walked through it, and part of you stayed behind. I've heard this before, too many times to call it coincidence. Padre, I woke up feeling ashamed, but in the dream, I didn't resist. I didn't even want to. Her voice trembled, but her eyes told the truth. Not guilt. Attachment. You must understand. Not all dreams come from you, and not all of them leave when you wake. There are dreams that visit because something was invited, sometimes not by you, sometimes long before you were born. There was a man once, devout and disciplined. He came to confession after waking from a dream that left him in tears, not because of what happened in it, but because of how familiar it felt. He said, "I loved her in the dream, but I never met her in this life. I didn't ask for her name, because that's not what matters. What matters is why your soul recognized her, and why she keeps coming back." You see, not all dreams are fantasies. Some are echoes. Some are chains passed through generations, tied to acts never spoken of, rituals never confessed. One of your ancestors may have opened a door they didn't know how to close. And now you dream what they once desired. If you've ever had a dream that left you marked, unsettled, or secretly satisfied, don't explain it, just comment. Not for views, for release. Shame grows stronger in silence. There are moments in your past you don't even remember that changed the fabric of your nights. A film you watched too young, a look someone gave, a touch you pretended to forget. Your body kept the memory, and your soul began to expect the visitor. One woman kept a handkerchief under her pillow. It belonged to someone she never forgave. He had touched her once, when she was a child, and she never told. But her dreams kept telling it to her over and over again, until she stopped crying when it happened, until she woke up one day and didn't feel anything at all. That's how the enemy wins, not by scaring you, by making you numb. Some dreams are not dreams, they are rehearsals. The soul is trained in the night, either by heaven or by something else. If your dreams repeat a pattern you would never accept in the day, ask why it's allowed in the night. The trap is not always in the pleasure. Sometimes it's in the familiarity, the face that appears, the hands that seem to know you, the feeling that this has happened before. Because maybe it has. Maybe not in this life, but in a shadowed chapter your soul has yet to reclaim. Let me whisper this clearly. You may think you are the one sinning in your dreams, but many of you are simply reliving what someone else did, through you, and the object near your bed. That old letter, that gift you never threw away, that shirt you sleep in from someone who broke you. These are not memories, they are altars. I saw a man who'd been pure for years, suddenly tormented by dreams so intense he couldn't pray afterward. He swore he hadn't looked at anything, hadn't touched himself. He was right. But he didn't know his wife had once made a secret vow out of desperation, long before they married, and the item she kept hidden in their room was never blessed. It was a vow sealed with fear. And fear is a signature demons remember. You're not crazy, you're not evil. But if you wake up feeling aroused, confused, or ashamed after sleep, it's not because your body is weak, it's because your spirit is being whispered to. And if you don't recognize the voice, it will whisper louder. Let me ask you, have you ever tried to fight it in the dream and found yourself paralyzed? That's not imagination, that's enforcement, a visitor that assumes ownership. And if you ever found yourself enjoying what you know is wrong, even while asleep, don't panic. That's not proof of evil, that's proof of access, and access can be revoked. There's a prayer I once gave a woman who confessed her nights were haunted. But I didn't tell her to pray louder. I told her to remove what tied her to the past, to burn the letters, to bless the bed, to sleep in silence again, not the silence of fear, but the silence that angels guard. Comment if you've ever felt something visit you in a dream that didn't belong. This message isn't for everyone. But if it's reaching you, it's because it was sent. You weren't supposed to hear this. But heaven overruled it. The dream is not your identity. The shame is not your punishment, but the door, it must be closed, and it will be, if you're willing to say, enough. You weren't born with that dream. It was given. Not as a gift, but as a continuation. Some of you are carrying things that didn't begin with you, a craving, a face, a night replayed in whispers while the world sleeps. It's not your imagination, it's a shadow inheritance. There was a woman who told me, "Padre, I've been faithful my whole life. I never strayed, never fell into sin. But my dreams betray me. I see myself with men I've never met. I feel their hands before I see their faces." I listened, not with suspicion, but with recognition. This wasn't temptation, this was imprint, and those are harder to break. Her grandmother, she later confessed, had been raped in the war. Never spoke of it, but died with her rosary clutched in the same hands that once bled from fear. And before she passed, and before she kissed that same rosary to her granddaughter's forehead, blessing her. But the rosary hadn't been blessed, and the wound hadn't healed. It passed on, unspoken, unnamed, but not undone. Do you understand? Some of you are dreaming from the wounds of another. And no one ever told you that shame can echo through generations, that unconfessed pain finds new soil to grow in, and if it can't be spoken, it will be dreamed. Don't brush this away. Don't say, "That's not me, I don't believe in that," because your body does. Your tears in the morning do. Your silence when no one's watching. That's the part of you that remembers what your mouth forgot. If you've ever woken up crying from something you couldn't explain, if your hands trembled and your chest burned but no one was there, comment, there are others who thought they were alone too. Until heaven sent this whisper to confirm. The ache is not madness, it's memory. The enemy doesn't invent desires, he recycles them, and he hides in the places no one cleans. Family stories no one finishes, rooms in the soul that no one has dared enter. But the dream enters them. Because no lock in the mind can keep out what's allowed through the blood. I once met a man who came to me not for confession but for clarity. He was a father, respected, a deacon in his parish, but he had stopped sleeping in the same bed with his wife. Not out of anger, but out of guilt. "Padre, I don't want to touch her, because in my dreams I'm touching someone else. A girl I don't recognize and I don't want it. But it feels like I already did." I asked him about his youth. He said he had forgotten most of it. But there was one summer, he said, when he lived with his uncle, and after that summer he stopped praying, stopped remembering, just moved on. But the soul never moved on. It buried the scene, and now it leaked into the nights, through the faces of strangers, through a desire that never made sense. He was not a pervert, he was not a liar, he was marked, and ashamed of a dream he didn't know he had earned. Listen to me. If you don't remember what happened, the enemy does. He doesn't care whether you're guilty. He only cares whether you're available, and nothing makes a soul more available than silence. That's why I keep saying, don't keep this quiet. Not because the world needs to know, but because the silence feeds it. The shame waters it. The dream repeats itself not just to torment you, but to ask if you still want it. Even if you don't say yes, indifference is enough. Some of you were exposed to filth when you were children, not by choice. You walked in on something, or someone made a joke they shouldn't have, or you held a phone that didn't belong to you, and you saw something your soul wasn't ready for. But no one told you that the eyes are doors, that sometimes the first time you see something is also the first time it touches you back. And now, years later, you still dream in those colors. You still wake up with images you never consciously replayed. You wonder if something is wrong with you. There's not. Something is wrong with the access, One woman I met would wake up every 3 a.m. sweating, breathless, uncertain that someone had been beside her. Her bed never moved, her sheets were tucked, her home was silent. But she knew, and she thought she was crazy, until she found, under her bed, an old letter from a man she used to be with, a letter she had forgotten about, but not truly. Her soul remembered. The letter wasn't cursed, it was just never released. Objects are not evil, but objects can anchor energies that don't belong. That's why God commanded Israel to tear down altars, not just idols, but even good things that had been tainted by blood or betrayal. Because memory, when misused, becomes a magnet for spirits that once had a foothold, and dreams are the most accessible battleground. Because you don't get to choose what you see. You only choose whether you keep it. Let me ask again. Do you wake up remembering a warmth you didn't ask for? A face you didn't love, but missed? Do you catch yourself hoping the dream returns? That is the trap, not the dream itself. The hunger it leaves behind. That's how you know it wasn't from God. Heaven never leaves you aching for what it didn't give. I'm not here to shame you. I'm here to remind you. You don't have to accept what came through the night. You can send it back. Say it out loud. That was not mine. That was not holy. That is not welcome. If this voice is touching something silent in you, write it down. Not for confession, for release. And then, speak over your sleep what no one ever taught you. Tonight belongs to heaven. No memory, no face, no pleasure may pass through this door. Let the light keep watch, and let silence be sacred again. You didn't ask to see those things again. And yet they came. Not in the form you remembered, but in the feeling your body never forgot. That's how they return. Not with faces, but with echoes. Your mind doesn't call them, your soul does. That's why some of you keep waking up with your heart racing, not because you're excited, but because your soul is reacting to something that touched it while you weren't guarding the door. Lust is not always the problem. Familiarity is a touch you didn't resist, not because you wanted it, but because you recognized it. I once heard a woman whisper, "Padre, why do I feel comfort in dreams that would make me weep in real life?" I looked at her, and I didn't see shame. I saw a longing shaped by abandonment. She wasn't craving the body, she was craving presence, and the enemy used that ache to deliver a replica, cheap, but enough to bind. Not all dreams are sexual because of lust. Some are sexual because your loneliness was louder than your holiness. Let that sink in. And the enemy doesn't tempt you with horror. He tempts you with what looks like healing. A person who holds you, listens to you, makes you feel seen. And in that moment, sleeping, floating, you forget it's a trap because the warmth is what you missed. And you think, maybe I needed this. No, you needed God. But he didn't come fast enough, so something else did. It always does. There was a young man who told me he kept dreaming of his old teacher, not in a dirty way. At first, just conversations, smiling, her praising him. Then one night, it changed, and he woke up sweating, not in guilt, but in grief. He was angry. I don't even think about her, Padre. I'm married now. Why is she still visiting me? Because the soul doesn't delete experiences, it stores them. And if left unchecked, it replays what felt like validation. That's the word I want you to remember. Validation. Not pleasure, not rebellion. Validation. That's what these dreams feed on. They're not always attacks. Sometimes they're reenactments of moments where you felt worthy, even if it came through a lie. That's why you feel guilty, not because you sinned in sleep, but because you woke up missing something you know God didn't approve of. That conflict between the ache and the holiness, that's where the war is. If this is making you think of someone, say their name in your mind right now. Don't speak it out loud yet. Just hold it. That person may no longer be in your life, but if they still appear in your sleep, something is unfinished, and heaven may be telling you it's time to close it. Not with rage, not with tears, but with the silence of surrender. I once asked a woman to do this. Before sleeping, speak this prayer. If there is any memory still touching me, not from God, not from peace, Not from holy love I return it, I return what was never mine to hold. She prayed it. That night, the dream didn't come. But something else did. A weeping, a shaking. And in her weeping, a name surfaced, a man she had forgotten. A cousin. From years ago. The one she never cried for. Because she thought it wasn't worth crying over. But her soul remembered. And it waited for the right silence to release the pain. You see, confession doesn't always begin with words. Sometimes it begins with a dream that refuses to stop. That is not punishment. That is mercy. The dream is not there to torment you. It's there to reveal what you buried. And once it rises, it can leave. But only if you allow it to be named. God will not heal what you still hide in comfort. Let me ask you again. Have you ever had a dream that gave you more attention than real life ever did? Where you felt more seen, more wanted, more whole, only to wake up and realize it was built on shadows. That's the lie of the night, the great illusion that what you longed for is in the arms of something nameless, something that disappears at sunrise. It is not, it never was, and still, I understand. I truly do. Because healing doesn't begin with a sword. It begins with a whisper. I miss being held. Say it. Even now, there's no shame in the ache, only in pretending you don't have it, but do not feed it with dreams. When your need meets your silence, the enemy sends an answer. It may wear a familiar smile. It may touch you just right. It may speak the words no one in the church ever did. But that doesn't make it holy. That makes it a counterfeit. Heaven does not use pleasure to seduce you. It uses presence to sanctify you. And there's a difference. If you feel this difference stirring inside, tell someone. Share this video. Not to warn, but to confirm. Someone else is having the same dream and thinking they are lost. Let them know. They are not. You weren't chosen to be clean. You were chosen to be reclaimed. And the dreams that haunt you are not proof of your failure. They are evidence of a soul worth fighting for. Say this before you sleep tonight. Lord, if the night tries to replay what I never asked for, silence it. If the enemy returns in memory, in face, in warmth, shut the door I cannot find. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be protected. And tonight, that protection begins with letting go of what felt like love, but wasn't. It's time to want something higher, not warmer, not louder, just higher. The soul knows where it belongs. Even if the dreams try to pull it elsewhere. She came to me shaking, not like a leaf in the wind, but like a soul trapped in a body that no longer listened. Her voice was small, but the memory behind it was loud. Padre, I don't know how to pray anymore. I don't even know if I'm clean enough to say his name. I didn't speak. I let her silence tell the story. Because in silence some demons fidget, and some truths finally breathe. She said the dreams began as whispers, shadows that sat near her bed, then hands, then faces, then pleasure. She fought. At first, she cried when she woke. But the third time she didn't cry. She smiled, and that terrified her more than anything. I used to wait for it. I hated it, but I waited, and now it comes without knocking. That's when I knew. This was not about lust anymore. This was about ownership. Something had claimed access. And not just for a night, but as a right. I asked her one question, not when, not how, but who taught you it was okay to be touched in silence? She froze. Then the name came, a cousin, trusted, older. I was 10, she said. I thought it was love, until I grew old enough to hate what I missed. You see, she didn't fall in her dreams. She was pulled back into what she had never escaped. The dream didn't invent the pleasure, it replayed the betrayal, wrapped it in sweetness, called it comfort. And she believed it, because that's how the memory survived. This is what I want you to understand. When a soul is touched without permission and silence follows, that soul becomes open, not possessed, but available. And darkness always notices what is unguarded. That's why some of you dream not of strangers, but of people you used to trust. Not because you desire them, But because your soul hasn't finished grieving what it lost in their presence, grief can look like desire in the dark. And if left unnamed, it will visit you again and again, until you mistake it for identity. I saw it in her eyes, not lust, despair. I gave her no penance yet. I asked her one thing: where is the object he gave you? She blinked. How did you know? Because the enemy always leaves something. A token, a letter, a gift, a garment, a relic of the sin pretending to be memory. But it is more than that, it's a claim. She reached into her bag. A silver bracelet, simple, rusted, still warm in her palm. She had never worn it, but she never threw it away. That was enough. I took it. We burned it. Not for drama, for closure. And for the first time in 12 years, she slept without a visitor. That night she didn't dream. She wept. And in her sleep, heaven rewrote what the darkness had been narrating for too long. Let me whisper this to your soul. Every dream that returns without your permission has an entry point. And every entry point has an item, a memory, or a lie it rests upon. You don't need to be strong. You need to be aware. If something comes to you in sleep, over and over, check your room, check your drawers, check the letters you keep, the music you fall asleep to, the photos you refuse to delete. Ask yourself not, is this sinful, but does this anchor me to a past I never healed from? That's where you'll find the open door. And no, you don't need an exorcist for every battle. Sometimes all it takes is a whisper, a surrender, and a decision to no longer welcome what once comforted you in the absence of God. You are not dirty because of what comes to you. You are vulnerable because no one taught you how to guard what dreams try to steal. But heaven is teaching you now. If this woman's story echoes in your bones, whisper it to someone, or write it here. Confession is not always for forgiveness. Sometimes it is for interruption, so the pattern breaks, so the silence ends. She never said his name again, but she said his. She said it with clean breath, and she slept like a soul returned. You can too, but you must let go of the thing that still holds your nights hostage. If you're holding something right now, something you've kept hidden, sacred, untouchable, ask why. Ask what it feeds in you. Ask who it belongs to, and then pray this: God, I return what was never mine. I release what I was made to carry in silence. Take back the night. Lord, reclaim the bed, reclaim the breath, reclaim the parts of me that got used to being visited by shadows. This prayer won't scare demons. It will starve them, because they feed on memory. And you are remembering what belongs to heaven again. You thought it would stop after the prayer, after the burning, after the confession. You thought that if you threw away the object, the dream would disappear too. But some dreams don't live in things. They live in the places you still refuse to name. I see it often. Not just torment, but something worse. Longing. A longing you dare not speak because it doesn't make sense. You don't want to sin. You don't want to fall. But part of you misses it. Not the dream, the feeling inside it, the way you were seen, the way you were touched like you mattered. That's the secret hunger, and that's why it returns. The dream becomes a routine, not nightly, but often enough to become familiar. And in that familiarity, a strange intimacy is born. You begin to expect it, not out loud, but you leave the door slightly open, just in case tonight. It feels like it did that one time, gentle, slow, comforting. And no one has to know. I'm not judging you. I've heard this in too many voices to call it rare. Padre, I hate the dream. But sometimes, I sleep without praying. I leave myself uncovered. They say it with tears. And they're not lying. They're just tired of feeling untouched by God and too touched by shadows. They stop fighting not out of rebellion but exhaustion. You must hear me now. This is the most dangerous place to be. Not in sin, but in quiet surrender to something that feels too soft to be evil. That's the trap. When evil doesn't scream, It whispers like a lover. I remember a man who confessed that he felt clean during the day but contaminated by night. He didn't look at anything. He didn't indulge, but his dreams, they kept inviting. And slowly, without realizing, he began to choose sleep earlier. He dimmed the lights. He lit candles. He said it calmed him. But I knew he was preparing, not to meet God, but to feel again. What no one told him is that spiritual addiction rarely starts in the body. It starts in the ache. When love feels distant, the replica becomes acceptable. And what begins as a violation turns into a craving. Because it's consistent. Because it shows up. Because it never asks for your name, only your silence. Let me say this gently. Some of you are not trapped by demons. You are trapped by the memory of being wanted, and you fear letting go because then, who will come? Who will fill the space? Who will reach for you in the night when even heaven feels slow? That is the lie, that God is too late, that holiness is too cold, that pleasure is the only warmth left. I break that lie in His name, but you must stop feeding it. How? Not by shouting. Not by sleeping with the Bible open like a shield. That's superstition. Real warfare begins when you confess what you secretly welcome. Say it now, even in your heart. I like the way it made me feel, but I hate the way I wake up. That contradiction is the altar. That's where heaven meets you, not in strength but in the struggle. And that is where you choose. If you felt this tension, whisper it in the comments. Not as shame, as signal. You're not alone. Someone else is laying down every night praying for protection, but secretly hoping the visitor returns. I had a woman tell me she couldn't sleep without music, but the songs she played were the same ones her ex used to play when they sinned. She said they comforted her. I said they summoned him. She cried. Not because I scolded her, but because no one ever told her that comfort without discernment becomes invitation. And the devil rarely knocks when the door is already ajar. She asked, "Should I sleep in silence now?" I told her, "Sleep in truth. Silence is not the goal. Clarity is. You must ask, what am I agreeing to when I let this play again?" Because dreams are not neutral. They either heal or hollow. And if yours hollow you, leave you emptier than you were before you closed your eyes, then you know. Even if it felt beautiful, even if it wore the voice of someone you loved, it wasn't from God. Because God does not give with one hand and steal with the other. Say this tonight before sleep. If I have grown used to being visited, if I have made room for what you did not send, close the space, even if it feels like loss, even if it feels like goodbye. That's what some of you need. Not just freedom, closure, not just purity, peace. Because if the visitor comes back, it's not to love you, it's to keep you in waiting. And waiting is how they win. Let me end this part with something I've never said publicly. There are people who spend years building holiness in the day but fall every night, not because they fail, but because they never closed the door on the one they secretly missed. If that's you, heaven is not angry, but it's waiting for your decision, not your perfection. Say this, tonight, I choose presence over pleasure. I choose light over longing. I choose truth, even if it leaves me cold for now, because warmth will come from the right place, at the right time, with a name I won't be afraid to speak in the morning. They only come when they're expected. Maybe not by words, but by rhythm, by silence, by the lack of prayer, by the ache no one knows about. The night is not just a moment, it is a pattern. And patterns are covenants wearing masks. You didn't choose to dream, but you chose not to guard. And in that absence, something was allowed. Padre Pio once said, "The soul is most watched not when it sins, but when it surrenders its nights without offering." That's the forgotten spiritual law. Your sleep is sacred. And someone is always waiting to claim what you don't consecrate. There was a man who lived holy, loved his wife, served his church. But he kept having the same dream. Not erotic, not violent, just consistent. A woman standing by his bed, silent, watching. Some nights, she touched his hand. Others, she smiled. She never spoke. But when he woke, he felt her presence stronger than his faith. He thought it was stress. He thought maybe his past was resurfacing, until one day, his daughter came to him and asked, "Who's the woman in white that stands at your door every night?" She saw her too. That's when he came to me. Not all sexual dreams are dreams. Not all touch is metaphor. Some visitations wear warmth to earn your permission, because the enemy doesn't break in, he is invited. And when the invitation is ritualized by repetition, by music, by silence, by imagination, the door becomes a temple, not to God, but to familiarity. And that is why Padre Pio warned, do not sleep next to the object that connects you to the flesh you've not crucified. It becomes a portal, not a memory. What's near your bed? Not just physically, spiritually. What are you still laying beside even if you think you've walked away? Is it a hope? A regret? A person you still whisper to in your dreams? Close your eyes now, not in fear, in recognition. Picture that dream, that moment, that face, the one that keeps returning, the one that feels too tender to call evil. Now ask it one question: who sent you? If it disappears, you'll know. If it resists, you'll feel it. If it smiles, beware, because what smiles in shadows often feeds on surrender. The final trap is not in pleasure, it's in permission. And permission does not require a yes, just silence. So tonight, break the silence. Say it now, even with a whisper. I renounce the dream that does not heal. I close the door I left open. I forgive what was familiar. I release what felt good but did not come from God. I welcome only what carries light. If you need to stand, stand. If you need to cry, cry. If you need to burn something, burn it. This is your altar now. And heaven is near, not with shame, but with hands ready to reclothe what the night has stripped. You don't have to confess every detail. You just have to say no more. And if the dream returns, don't panic. Just speak again, not loudly, but clearly. You have no bed here. I sleep with angels tonight. If this series has touched something inside you, come on, not for us, for the part of you that needed someone to finally say, yes, that happened. Yes, heaven saw. And yes, you're still clean. This message may end, but your night won't, because something has shifted. The silence is no longer empty. The door has a name, and now you sleep not in pieces but in peace, because something has shifted. You've named the door, you've chosen the closure, and now you're no longer sleeping in pieces. You're sleeping with peace. If tonight your sleep is silent, holy, untouched, let your soul remember it in stillness, because heaven already has.